Alright, I'm once again going to explore a new town. So we have severe weather all throughout the Northwest. And Seattle, every time it snows in Seattle, people use it as an excuse to take time off. I mean, I've driven in worse snow than this in Rochester, New York, but Seattle has never seen it, right? When I was in Wallace, Idaho, it snowed even worse than Seattle. People continued to live their lives. But that's good, because I get to explore outside of Seattle. I don't belong in Seattle. I have a hard time joining anything in Seattle. People have their established relationships over there, and I'm just such a misfit over there. When I was living in Seattle these last 2 months, you may have remembered from my videos, I mused so many times about having one long fast. I do intermittent fasting. Having one long fast until I fade away, just because of how much I don't fit into Seattle. Out here in the mountains, I still love fasting, but I have a much better relationship with that than to want to fast myself to death. Now, getting back to when I was in Seattle, I learned the hard way about my negotiating a living situation. See, I had a landlord who I was living with. I usually love the idea of living with the landlord. I mean, I did that when I was in Wallace. I did it in Missoula. And usually I have to be careful about some landlords just watch their property like a hawk, right? I mean, you only have two hands, right? It's impossible when you're moving furniture in and out, when you're cooking, when you're cleaning. It's impossible to not have the place be in a state where it's just, if you're going to watch it all the time, you have to be prepared to watch it, right? So the landlord I had, you may have remembered when I first moved into the home in Mercer Island, I was really excited because I didn't run into that stuff. I ran into other barriers, though. See, when I first moved in there, I asked him about all the clutter he had in the house. You may have remembered how cluttered it was. And he assured me that he just had a tenant move out. He had family coming over during the holidays to help clean up and all that. And never happened. He dragged his feet about that. To the point that I would ask him about it and he would just be busy with something else, right? And finally, I lost my patience during the Thanksgiving weekend. See, he had a lamp that the shade wasn't even working. It would go boom in the middle of I'd be shooting a YouTube video or in a lecture. I do remote teaching, and the shade on that lamp would just fall off and screw up the lighting. And during the Christmas weekend, I was so upset at that. I took that lamp. I took the bulb off first. And then I took the lamp outside and I destroyed it. And fortunately, my landlord didn't see. I picked up the pieces and I threw it away. But I was so upset because here we are in a house worth $2 million according to Zillow, and we have broken stuff all over the place. And he has old remote controls for TVs that no longer exist. And I got so, after I broke the lamp, I went around the house and threw away a ton of stuff. My landlord was away on a vacation, and I tossed a lot of stuff into the dumpster. And long story short, I left the property in better condition than it was, but I got rid of a lot of stuff. And I'm hoping he's not going to get upset when he comes home. But I learned the hard way that if something has to be promised, right, like my landlord, if somebody wants to get rid of clutter, they get rid of it, right? They don't talk about it, right? I almost never, unless I want to do a demonstration, I almost never make a video about how I got rid of a ton of clutter, right? I just do it because it feels good, right? Somebody who wants to talk about it clearly has no intention of doing something, right? So lesson number one about these living situations, if something has to be promised, it probably isn't going to happen. If something's going to happen, it's not going to have to be promised, right? It's kind of like how when Nixon ended the gold standard, how he promised to bring it right back, right? Or what else? Or when we were going to quarantine for 2 weeks in March of 2020, right? If it really is only going to take 2 weeks, the politicians wouldn't have to promise it, right? They would just close for 2 weeks and be done with it, right? Now, the other lesson I learned is how involved he got when I was first interviewing for the apartment, right? he got really excited about my choice of profession. He got really excited about my eating habits, how healthy I was eating. And it felt like it was a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. I was mistaken. It's he I learned that people like him, he doesn't let go, right? He wants to run my life for me, and I would be in the middle of cooking something, and he would comment on how tasteless my food was. Hello, I've been eating it like that for 15 years now. If it really was tasteless, I think I would discover it, right? And let me be the judge on how much I like what I eat, right? Unless I'm not even complaining to you, right? Why are you commenting, right? And unfortunately, it got so bad that one day, this is when I finally decided I had to get out of there, and he had to do renovations anyway. So we decided that the holiday season would be a good time for him to do renovations. I have chemical sensitivities, and I won't be able to live in there when he's doing it anyway. But the final straw was one day. I had been fasting for 21 hours. I was getting ready to break the fast. I had come home after work. It was 7 o'clock, and I get to my room. He's in the kitchen doing something, and you see, if he weren't so intrusive, I've shared kitchens with other people who weren't intrusive, right? You saw when I was living in Phoenix, that wasn't a problem. Sharing the kitchen is not the problem, right? Sharing the kitchen with somebody who's going to comment on every little detail, that is a problem. So I get to my room at 7, and I'm writing a computer game, and I look at the clock. It's 8 o'clock. He's still in the kitchen. 9 o'clock. He's still in the kitchen. And I got so frustrated that I decided to continue the fast, and I ended up doing a 40-some hour fast, which has its own benefits, but it was unplanned. And the next day, there was no sign of him letting up with the kitchen area either, and I ended up having to, I discovered a new restaurant, which is good, right? I like to think positively. But then I realized, oh my God, the rental really doesn't include the kitchen, despite his ad, right? It effectively did not include the kitchen anymore, right? Because of the attitude, right? And if I'm paying that much rent without kitchen privileges, it wasn't worth it anymore, right? All right. Anyways, be careful about people who seem to care too much, and realize that if something has to be promised, there's a good chance it's not going to be delivered, because if it's going to be delivered, it wouldn't have to be promised, right? People who want to do something will actually do it.